Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to chat with you guys a little bit about understanding that it takes many years to reach your size and strength potential. And this is something that I've observed in many lifters over the years, something you guys see me doing, and I think this is something that applies equally to both drug-free and enhanced lifters. Okay? It applies equally to both because the same thing happens with the guys who are using stuff, right? If they stay pretty consistent using the same amount roughly of whatever they're using, it's going to take them 10 to 15 years to really even see the potential size and strength they could get doing what they are doing. Okay, so I'm not just talking about drug-free here, although I think all of us understand that this 100% applies to anyone who's doing it completely clean. I mean, my God, does it apply. It's going to take you a very long time. When we say, well, we make a lot in our first year or two, well, if you follow really good programming. I see people who spent 5 years goofing off in the gym who still haven't even finished their noob gains out. And what I mean is that it's consistent time under the iron. In other words, people who say, oh, I'm just going to reach my potential in a few years. No, you're not. And I don't want people to think that you're going to reach crazy levels of muscle mass just because you've put 15 years in. That's not what I mean. You're not going to reach the size that a lot of guys can get using stuff. Okay? But I know plenty of drug-free guys who've continued to gain half a pound of muscle every year after their first decade. And that doesn't seem like a lot, does it? Until you realize that a half a pound of muscle could be worth a lot on your big lifts. Okay, how much does your squat go up with that? In other words, I've coached guys already who had quite a few years of training who were in like a 400-ish squat, and get them up to high 400s, get them up to 500. Okay? And then you continue to work with those people, and those people continue to make gains. I got a really good friend of mine many years ago, like 8 years ago, or when I started this channel earlier, right before I started it. He's a big follower of it. And he is himself a pretty serious coach now. But he had over a decade of training, had a sub 500 squat, got him to a 500 squat. And then over the next 7 years or so on his own, he put another 50 pounds on it. Now, he had been stuck doing something like 405 for a couple reps. And he couldn't crack high 400s. I helped him get to 500 with some basic programming over the course of quite a few months. He got there. He got to 500. Okay. 8 years later, he squats 550. And I think he's around 40 years old at this point. Chatting with Duffin the other day, Chris Duffin wrote on my private Facebook wall on a topic of this. He said, hey, it took me 30 years to even be where I'm at. I'm just now peaking, reaching some of my very best lifts right around 30 years of training. Okay. 30 years. And this is the difference. And when you see a lot of these guys, you'll see a lot of guys who they go on a bit of gear and their bench goes up a bit. But their other lifts lack, and maybe they lack overall thickness, so therefore their strength is low and everything else. In other words, what most people think of as achievable in a short time is just that certain look. Okay, if you put a bunch of size on your shoulders and your arms and you get real lean, when it's just you there and you're not standing next to anyone who's actually big, those guys oftentimes look impressive to the untrained eye. You know, and it's understandable. They've got abs, they got nice round delts. And people see them and say, hey, well, that guy looks pretty jacked. And you realize they're not really that strong. And if they are, they might be okay at the bench. They can't do anything else. Right? Because they haven't put overall muscle and thickness and muscle density in these things on through their body. Someone can get a certain look pretty quick. They can get you a little bit of a decent strength base relatively quick. You know, a year or 2, 3 years. That can be done, particularly guys who get a little bit of help. But again, they have to stay lean. They've got to get real lean to pull that off. Because if they're not lean, you can tell they don't have any size. Okay? And they don't have any size, and we know they don't have any real strength either. Because those are enormously correlated. But that's what I'm talking about, is that it can take a long time. It's a long journey. The quest for strength, particularly, which is what I focus on this channel, we don't care about physique. The quest for strength is a long one. It's a long one. You have to be willing to consistently put the work in. And yes, you'll still keep hitting PR year after year. And I see a lot of guys who don't get close to their potential till the 10, 15 year mark. Okay? I mean, I had a client who I started working with over a year ago. Low 400 squatter, decade in. High 200s bencher. Sumo pull like crazy. Mid 400s on the deadlift. Well, now guy, we put something like 60 pounds on his deadlift, 50 pounds on his squat, like another 30 on his sumo. He's only put about 10 to 15 pounds on his bench in that year, but he's also been training for a decade. Completely drug-free guy, and he looks jacked. Like a lot of you guys who talk about, well, you don't look good, Jason, or whatever. Well, I think he doesn't look like I do. I'll put it that way. He's leaner with rounder delts. And has a six-pack. But we train him for strength. But that's a perfect example of what we're talking about. He had been training for a decade already when he hired me. And realistically, if we start talking about man putting, when you've been training that long, you can put 10 pounds on your bench every year for a few years. Okay, that adds up. Because if you've already put in 10 years worth of work, you're in it for the long haul anyways. So you start looking at that and saying, okay, so where can I be in 5 years if we dial the training in perfect? Right? I mean, this particular guy, this guy's going to squat 500 and deadlift 600. And I don't think he's going to have to go over 200 pounds body weight to do it. But again, he's looking at a few more years of work to get there. Been at it 11 years now. And by all standards, I mean, by most people's standards, they might not even believe the guy is actually drug-free. Realistically, if you saw him with shirtless. You know, they might not think he is, but he is. But you have to factor in, how hard has this guy been training for 11 years now? 11 years. Been doing it since he was like 19 or 20. You're going to have to play the long game. There are no shortcuts. There are no real shortcuts, because even the things that people think of as shortcuts, they just take you to a different tier, and then they take another 10 years to get where you're trying to get. Unless you get greedy. And I don't recommend that people do that. But it's a long game, guys. It will take you to get anywhere near your size and strength potential. You're looking at putting in 10 to 15 years of real work, realistically. I mean, that's what we're talking about. And you keep moving forward from there. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.